Jake Morrison felt terrible when he walked into the medical bay that morning. His head hurt badly, and his whole body ached from the long fight they had yesterday. The enemy had attacked their base again, and Jake had spent 12 hours shooting, and running and hiding behind broken walls. Now he needed to get his flu shot before the next battle started. The medical bay was small and hot. Jake wiped sweat from his face as he looked around the room. There were beds along one wall and machines that beeped and flashed with lights. The smell of medicine and cleaning supplies made his nose wrinkle. He wanted to get this over with and go back to his room to sleep. Dr. Lisa Carter stood near a metal table covered with medical tools. She was a tall woman with brown hair tied back and serious eyes. Jake had seen her many times before when soldiers got hurt in fights. She always looked calm, even when bad things happened. Today she looked different, though. Her hands shook a little when she picked up things from the table. "Lieutenant Morrison reporting for flu vaccination," Jake said in a tired voice. He rubbed his temples where the pain was worst. "Can we make this quick? I need to check on my squad before evening patrol." Lisa nodded and pointed to a chair next to her table. "Sit down and roll up your left sleeve. This will only take a minute." Jake sat down heavily in the chair. The metal was cold against his back. He rolled up his sleeve and looked out the small window at the desert outside. The planet they were fighting on was hot and dry, with red sand everywhere. Strange plants grew in twisted shapes, and the sky was always dusty yellow. He missed Earth with its blue sky and green trees. Lisa opened a metal box on her table. Inside were several small glass bottles filled with clear liquid. She picked up one bottle and read the label carefully. Then she put it back and picked up another bottle. This one had strange writing on it that Jake could not read. The letters looked like they came from a different language. "Just a standard flu shot," Lisa said as she filled a needle with liquid from the second bottle. "You might feel tired for a day or two, but then you will be fine." Jake was not really listening. He watched a small lizard run across the rocks outside the window. The lizard was bright blue and moved very fast. Everything on this planet was different from home. Even the air smelled wrong. Lisa cleaned a spot on Jake's arm with a cold cloth. The cloth smelled sharp and made his skin feel numb. She held the needle up to the light and pushed out a tiny drop of liquid. Jake looked away because he did not like needles, even though he would never tell anyone that. "There," Lisa said as she pushed the needle into his arm. The liquid felt cold going in. "All done. Press this cotton ball on the spot for a few minutes." Jake held the cotton ball against his arm. There was a small dot of blood on it. "When will I start feeling better? This headache is killing me." "The vaccine takes a day or two to work," Lisa said as she threw the empty needle into a red box marked with warning signs. "Rest as much as you can. Drink lots of water. You should feel much better in a few days." Lisa watched Jake carefully as he stood up from the chair. She had just done something that could change everything. The bottle she used was not the flu vaccine at all. It was something much more powerful and dangerous. Something that was supposed to be tested in a lab for many more months before anyone tried it on a real person. The military leaders had ordered her to give Jake the experimental drug. They said the war was going badly, and they needed new weapons to fight the aliens. The aliens were stronger and faster than humans. Their skin was harder, and their bones did not break easily. Human soldiers were dying every day because they could not compete. The experimental drug was supposed to change that. Scientists had worked for years to create something that would make humans stronger and faster. They called it Project Ascension. The drug would change Jake's body at the smallest level. His muscles would grow stronger. His bones would become harder. His eyes would see better, and his mind would work faster. but no one knew if it would actually work on a real person. No one knew if Jake would survive what was about to happen to him. Lisa felt sick thinking about what she had done. Jake was a good soldier and a decent man. He did not deserve to be used as a test subject without knowing about it. "Dr. Carter?" Jake asked. He was standing by the door, looking confused. "Are you okay? You look upset about something." Lisa forced herself. Tio smiled. "I am fine. Just tired from working long hours. You should go rest now. Come back if you feel worse instead of better." Jake nodded and walked out of the medical bay. Lisa watched him go down the hallway toward the sleeping quarters. He walked like he always did, with confident steps and straight shoulders. In a few days, he might be walking very differently. If he was still walking at all, Lisa sat down in the chair where Jake had been sitting. Her hands were shaking worse now. She looked at the empty bottle that had contained the experimental drug. The writing on the label was in the language of the scientists who made it. She could read it perfectly. It said, "Prototype Enhancement Serum, Human Trial Version, 1.0, extremely dangerous, authorized personnel only." She put the bottle in a special container for dangerous medical waste. Then she wrote notes in Jake's medical file. She wrote that he had received a standard flu vaccination and should be monitored for normal side effects. She did not write anything about Project Ascension or experimental drugs, or the fact that Jake Morrison might wake up tomorrow as something more than human. Outside the window, the blue lizard was gone. The sun was setting over the desert, and the sky was turning dark red. Soon the night patrol would begin, and soldiers would go out to watch for enemy attacks. Jake would probably be with them if he felt well enough. Lisa hoped the drug would not start working until he was safely back inside the base. She locked her medical supplies in the metal box and turned off the lights in the medical bay. Tomorrow she would have to check on Jake and pretend she did not know why his body might be changing in impossible ways. Jake woke up on the third day feeling like a completely different person. The terrible headache was gone, and so was the pain in his back and shoulders. He had been carrying heavy equipment for months, and his body always hurt when he got out of bed. Today he felt amazing. His muscles did not ache at all, and his mind was clear and sharp. He sat up in his narrow bed and stretched his arms over his head. Something felt wrong, but in a good way. His body felt lighter, but also stronger. When he stood up, his legs did not feel stiff like they usually did. He felt like he could run for miles without getting tired. Jake walked to the small mirror on his wall to check his appearance. His face looked the same, but his eyes seemed brighter somehow. The color was still brown, but they looked more alive. His skin had a healthy glow, even though he had been living in the desert for months. He felt energy running through his whole body like electricity. The morning alarm sounded through the base, and Jake got dressed quickly. He put on his uniform and boots and grabbed his equipment from the storage box under his bed. The gear felt much lighter than usual. His rifle that normally took effort to carry now felt like it weighed nothing at all. Even his heavy backpack seemed as light as a pillow. Jake walked outside to meet his squad for morning exercises. The other soldiers were already gathered in the training area, stretching and getting ready to run. Corporal Danny Rodriguez waved at him from across the yard. Danny was Jake's best friend on the base, and they had fought in many battles together. "Morrison, you look good today," Danny called out. "That flu shot must have helped. You were looking pretty rough a few days ago." Jake nodded and joined the group for their daily run around the base. The course was 3 miles long through the desert sand and rocky hills. It was designed to be difficult, and most soldiers finished feeling exhausted and sweaty. Jake started running with the others, but quickly realized something was very different. His legs moved without effort, and his breathing stayed calm and steady. The other soldiers began to fall behind as Jake ran faster and faster. He was not even trying to speed up, but his body wanted to move at a pace that felt natural to him. By the time he finished the course, he was several minutes ahead of everyone else, and he did not feel tired at all. Danny caught up to him, breathing hard and sweating heavily. "What the hell, Morrison? Did you take some kind of energy pills?" "I have. Never seen you run like that before." Jake shrugged because he did not know how to explain what he was feeling. "I guess I just feel really good today. Maybe I needed that rest." The squad leader, Sergeant Kate Williams, looked at Jake with curiosity. She was a tough soldier who had been fighting aliens for 5 years. She noticed everything and never missed details about her soldiers. "Morrison, report to the obstacle course. I want to see what else you can do today." The obstacle course was the hardest part of their training. Soldiers had to climb over walls, carry heavy objects, and crawl under barriers. Most people took 20 minutes to complete it, and everyone finished feeling completely drained. Jake approached the first obstacle, which was a 12-foot wall that soldiers had to climb using only a rope. He grabbed the rope and started climbing. His arms pulled him up the wall like he weighed almost nothing. At the top, he realized he had climbed faster than he ever had before. The next obstacle was carrying a heavy metal box across a field of sand. The box normally required 2 soldiers to lift it safely. Jake wrapped his arms around the box and lifted it easily. It felt like he was carrying an empty cardboard container instead of solid metal filled with rocks. He ran across the sand dunes with the box above his head while the other soldiers watched in amazement. Some of them started pointing and talking to each other in excited voices. The final obstacle was crawling under a net of wire while carrying his rifle and backpack. Jake dropped to his belly and started crawling forward. His body moved through the sand like a snake, and he reached the end in half the time it usually took him. When he stood up, he was not even breathing hard. Sergeant Williams walked over to him with a confused expression on her face. "Morrison, I need you to explain what just happened. You just completed that course in 8 minutes. The base record is 15 minutes, and that was set by an enhanced alien prisoner we captured last year." Jake looked at his hands and flexed his fingers. They felt stronger than before, but he could not explain why. "I honestly do not know, Sergeant. I just feel really energetic today. Maybe the flu shot had some kind of vitamin in it." "Report to the firing range," Williams ordered. "I want to test your accuracy while you are in this condition." The firing range was a long building with targets set up at different distances. Jake took his standard rifle and loaded it with practice ammunition. He had always been a good shot, but today something felt different when he held the weapon. His hands were perfectly steady, and his eyes seemed to focus on the targets with incredible sharpness. He squeezed the trigger gently, and the rifle fired. The bullet hit the center of the target, exactly where he was aiming. He fired again and again, hitting the bullseye every time. After 10 shots, he had achieved perfect accuracy, which was something he had never done before in his entire military career. But then something went wrong. On his 11th shot, Jake squeezed the trigger too hard. The metal trigger mechanism bent under the pressure from his finger and broke completely. The rifle made a grinding sound and stopped working. Jake stared at the broken weapon in confusion. "Did you just break that trigger with your finger?" Williams asked in disbelief. She took the rifle from Jake and examined the damaged parts. "These triggers are made from hardened steel. It should be impossible for a human to bend one by accident." Jake looked at his hand like it belonged to someone else. "I did not mean to squeeze that hard. It felt normal to me." Williams handed him a different rifle from the weapon rack. "Try again, but be more careful with the trigger." Jake loaded the second rifle and aimed at a target. He tried to squeeze the trigger more gently, but the same thing happened. The mechanism bent and broke under pressure that felt completely normal to him. The rifle became useless, just like the first one. "That is enough," Williams said firmly. "Morrison, report to the medical bay immediately. Something is definitely wrong. With you." Jake walked across the base toward the medical building. Other soldiers stared at him as he passed. Word was already spreading about his performance on the obstacle course and his impossible accuracy with the rifles. Some soldiers looked impressed, while others seemed worried or scared. He thought about how different he felt compared to 3 days ago. His body was stronger and faster than it had ever been. His vision was sharper, and his mind felt more alert. But he was also breaking military equipment with his bare hands without even trying. Something was happening to him that he did not understand. "Doctor." Lisa Carter was waiting for him when he arrived at the medical bay. She had already heard reports about his enhanced performance from other soldiers. Her face looked pale and worried as she pointed to the examination chair. "Sit down, Jake," she sighed quietly. "We need to run some tests and figure out what is going on with your body." Jake sat in the chair and rolled up his sleeves. He hoped Dr. Carter would be able to explain the changes he was experiencing. He also hoped that whatever was happening to him would not get worse. Breaking rifle triggers was one thing, but he was afraid of what else he might accidentally damage if his strength kept increasing. The alarm sirens began screaming at 3 in the morning, and red warning lights flashed throughout the base. Jake rolled out of his bed, instantly awake and alert. His enhanced senses picked up sounds that other soldiers could not hear. Explosions in the distance, the high-pitched whine of alien energy weapons, the heavy footsteps of enemy soldiers approaching through the desert. "All soldiers to defensive positions," came the voice over the communication system. "This is not a drill. Enemy forces are attacking the main gate." Jake grabbed his gear and ran toward the armory. His body moved faster than it ever had before, and he reached the weapons storage before most other soldiers had even left their beds. He picked up a standard rifle and ammunition, but the weapon felt strange in his hands. It was too light and too fragile. He was afraid he might break it accidentally, like he had done during target practice. Outside the base, Jake could see the attacking force approaching across the sand dunes. The Zephyrian Coalition soldiers were tall humanoid creatures with gray skin and glowing red eyes. They wore advanced armor that shimmered with energy shields and carried weapons that fired beams of deadly light. There were at least 50 of them moving in organized groups toward the human defensive positions. Jake ran to his assigned position on the outer wall of the base. Other human soldiers were already there, setting up heavy guns and checking their equipment. Everyone looked nervous because they had fought these aliens many times before and usually lost more soldiers than they could afford. The enemy was simply too strong and too advanced for normal human weapons to be very effective. "Morrison, get down here," called Sergeant Williams from below the wall. "Your squad is assigned to defend the eastern gate." Jake jumped down from the wall instead of using the ladder. He landed easily in the sand without feeling any impact in his legs. Williams stared at him strangely, but there was no time to ask questions. The enemy was getting closer and would reach the base defenses in just a few minutes. Jake ran with his squad toward the eastern gate. Danny Rodriguez was beside him carrying extra ammunition and looking scared. "I hate fighting these things," Danny said. "Their weapons cut right through our armor like it is made of paper." The first energy beams began hitting the base walls, sending up clouds of vaporized concrete and metal. The alien weapons made a sound like thunder when they fired, and left glowing holes in everything they hit. Human soldiers began shooting back with conventional bullets, but their weapons barely scratched the enemy armor. Jake raised his rifle, and aimed at the nearest alien soldier. He pulled the trigger carefully, trying not to break the firing mechanism. The bullet hit the enemy directly in the chest, but bounced off the energy shield without causing any damage. The alien turned toward Jake and raised its weapon to fire back. The energy beam came straight at Jake faster than any human should have been able to avoid. But Jake was no longer entirely human. His enhanced reflexes kicked in, and time seemed to slow down around him. He could see the beam of light approaching, and had enough time to dive to the side before it reached him. The beam hit the wall behind Jake and melted a hole 3 feet wide in the reinforced concrete. If he had been standing there, it would have killed him instantly. Jake rolled behind cover and looked at his rifle. The heat from the nearby energy blast had warped the metal barrel, making the weapon useless. "My rifle is damaged," Jake called out to Sergeant Williams. "I need another weapon." "All we have are standard rifles," Williams shouted back over the noise of the battle. "Make it work, Morrison." Jake grabbed a rifle from a fallen soldier and tried to use it against the attacking aliens. But the same thing happened again. His shots bounced harmlessly off their energy shields, while their return fire destroyed his cover and nearly killed him. The human weapons were completely inadequate against the advanced alien technology. An alien soldier twice Jake's size came charging through a gap in the defensive wall. It carried a glowing sword made of pure energy that could cut through tank armor. The creature was heading straight for Danny, who was trapped behind a pile of rubble with a jammed rifle. Jake did not have time to think about what he was doing. He dropped his useless gun and ran directly at the alien soldier. The creature saw him coming and swung its energy sword in a deadly arc aimed at Jake's head. Any normal human would have been cut in half by the weapon, but Jake caught the energy blade with his bare hands. The sword was designed to slice through the strongest materials known to science. It generated temperatures hot enough to melt steel and vibrated at frequencies that could shatter diamonds. But Jake's enhanced skin absorbed the energy, and his improved bone structure resisted the cutting force. The blade stopped completely. When it touched his palms, the alien soldier looked shocked and confused. It had never seen any creature survive direct contact with an energy weapon. Jake twisted the sword out of the alien's grip and threw it aside. Then he grabbed the 7-foot-tall creature and lifted it completely off the ground. Jake's enhanced muscles had become incredibly powerful. He threw the alien soldier across the battlefield like it weighed nothing at all. The creature flew 30 feet through the air and crashed into a group of its companions, knocking them all to the ground. Other human soldiers stopped fighting and stared at Jake in amazement. They had just watched him catch an energy sword with his bare hands and throw an armored alien like it was a child's toy. It was impossible, but they had all seen it happen. "What the hell are you, Morrison?" Danny asked from behind his cover. His voice was filled with awe and fear. Jake did not answer, because he was busy fighting more aliens. Without any working weapons, he used his hands and whatever objects he could find. He picked up chunks of concrete and threw them with enough force to dent alien armor. He grabbed metal pipes and used them as clubs that could smash through enemy shields. 2 alien soldiers attacked Jake at the same time with energy weapons. He moved faster than their targeting systems could track dodging beams of light that would have vaporized a normal person. He reached the first alien and punched it in the chest. His enhanced fist went completely through the creature's armor and body. The second alien tried to run away, but Jake caught up to it easily. His improved speed let him move across the battlefield like a blur. He grabbed the fleeing creature and threw it into the side of an alien armored vehicle. The impact was so powerful that it dented the vehicle's hull and disabled its weapon systems. Jake continued fighting his way through the enemy forces. He destroyed their equipment with his bare hands and defeated soldiers that had been trained. to fight creatures much stronger than humans. His standard military gear was falling apart from the stress of his enhanced movements, but his body was completely unharmed. The battle lasted for 2 hours, but it felt like minutes to Jake. His enhanced mind processed information faster than normal, and his improved reflexes let him react to threats before they became dangerous. By the time the sun came up over the desert, the alien attack force had been completely defeated. Jake stood in the middle of the battlefield, surrounded by destroyed enemy equipment and fallen alien soldiers. His uniform was torn, and his standard armor had cracked in several places, but he did not have a single injury. The other human soldiers approached him carefully, like they were afraid of what he had become. Captain Steve Johnson arrived from the command bunker with a look of complete disbelief on his face. He had watched the entire battle through surveillance cameras and seen Jake single-handedly turn the tide against a superior enemy force. "Morrison," the captain said slowly, "I need you to report to headquarters immediately. We have a lot of questions about what just happened here." Jake looked at his hands, which were covered in alien blood, but completely undamaged. He had stopped an energy sword that could cut through anything. He had thrown creatures twice his size like they were made of paper. He had moved fast enough to dodge beams of light and survived a battle that should have killed him 10 times over. Something had definitely changed inside his body, and it was much more than just feeling energetic after a flu shot. Jake was becoming something that humanity had never seen before, and he was not sure if that was a good thing or a terrifying problem. Jake sat in the secure briefing room, surrounded by the most important military leaders on the base. General Frank Hayes sat across from him at a metal table covered with classified documents and computer screens. Captain Johnson stood near the door with 2 armed guards who watched Jake carefully, like he might be dangerous. Dr. Lisa Carter was also in the room, but she would not look directly at Jake. She kept staring at her hands or at the papers on the table. Her face was pale, and she looked like she had not slept in days. Jake wondered why she seemed so nervous about a medical briefing. "Lieutenant Morrison," General Hayes began in a serious voice, "what I am about to tell you is classified at the highest levels of military security. The information in this room could change the outcome of the war against the Zephyrian Coalition." Jake nodded, but said nothing. His enhanced senses could detect things about the people in the room that normal humans would miss. The general's heart rate was elevated, and he was sweating slightly despite the cool air conditioning. Captain Johnson kept shifting his weight from foot to foot like he was uncomfortable. "T-shirt Carter smelled like fear. The injection you received 3 days ago was not a flu vaccination," the general continued. "It was an experimental enhancement serum developed under a program called Project Ascension." Jake felt his stomach drop. "What do you mean? It was not a flu shot?" Di Carter finally looked up at him with guilt written across her face. "I lied to you, Jake. I gave you something that was supposed to make you stronger and faster. Something that would let human soldiers compete against enhanced alien forces. You used me as a test subject without my permission." Jake asked. His voice was calm, but everyone in the room could sense the anger building inside him. "The program was supposed to remain classified for 6 more months, General Haas explained. But the alien attacks were getting worse, and we were losing the war. The Coalition has been using genetic enhancement technology for centuries. Their soldiers are superior to humans in every way. We needed to level the playing field quickly." Jake stood up from his chair, and everyone in the room tensed. The metal chair creaked under forces it was not designed to handle. "So you decided to experiment on me without telling me what you were doing? You were chosen because of your excellent service record and genetic compatibility," Dr. Carter said quietly. "The computer analysis showed you had the best chance of surviving the enhancement process." "Surviving?" Jake repeated. "You mean I could have died from this?" The laboratory tests were promising, but we had never tried the serum on a living human. Before, Dr. Carter admitted, we did not know if your body would accept the genetic modifications or reject them completely. Jake walked to the window and looked out at the desert where he had fought the aliens. His enhanced vision could see details that would be invisible to normal eyes. Small animals moving between rocks, dust particles floating in the air, the individual grains of sand on distant dunes. What exactly did you do to me? He asked without turning around. Dr. Carter activated a holographic display that showed a three-dimensional model of human DNA. The serum contains microscopic machines that rewrite genetic code at the cellular level. They strengthen bone density by 40% and completely restructure muscle fiber composition. Neural pathways are enhanced for faster reflexes and improved cognitive function. Sensory organs are upgraded for better vision, hearing, and smell. You turned me into something that is not human anymore, Jake said. You are still human, General Hayes insisted. You are just a better version of human. Stronger, faster, smarter, and more durable than baseline genetics allow. Jake turned away from the window and faced the people in the room. How many others have you done this to? You are the first field test, Dr. Carter said. The initial results suggest that mass production might be possible, but we need more data about how the enhancements perform in actual combat situations. I am a prototype, Jake said flatly. You are the key to humanity's survival, General Hayes corrected. The battle you fought yesterday proved that enhanced humans can defeat Zephyrian forces in direct combat. That has never happened before. In the entire war, Jake remembered catching the energy sword and throwing alien soldiers across the battlefield. His standard military equipment had been completely inadequate for his enhanced capabilities. The rifle triggers broke when he tried to fire them. His armor cracked from the stress of his movements. Even his boots were falling apart. My gear cannot handle what I have become, Jake said. Everything breaks when I try to use it. That is why we need you to work with our engineering teams, Captain Johnson said. We need to design new equipment specifically for enhanced human physiology. Weapons that can withstand your grip strength. Armor that can flex with your increased muscle mass. Equipment that matches your new capabilities. Dr. Carter brought up another holographic display showing technical specifications and measurements. Your bone density has increased beyond anything we thought possible. Your muscle fibers can generate forces that would crush normal equipment. Your reflexes operate at speeds that standard targeting systems cannot match. We are not asking you to be happy about how this happened, General Hayes said. We are asking you to help us save the human race. The Zephyrian coalition has been winning this war because they abandoned fair fighting centuries ago. Their soldiers are genetically enhanced from birth. Ours are not. Jake looked at his hands, which appeared normal, but could bend steel and catch energy weapons. What happens if I refuse to cooperate? Then humanity probably loses this war, the general said bluntly. The aliens have better technology, better weapons, and better soldiers. The only advantage we might have is the ability to enhance our own people to match their capabilities. And if the enhancement process kills people instead of making them stronger, then we find out what went wrong and fix the problems, Dr. Carter said. Science requires experimentation and sometimes experiments fail, but doing nothing guarantees that we lose everything. Jake sat back down in the metal chair, which groaned under his weight. You should have asked me before you did this. I had a right to know what you were putting in my body. You are absolutely right, Dr. Carter said. What I did was wrong, and I am sorry. But I am also glad that you survived, because now we know the process works. How many volunteers do you have for the next round of testing? Jake asked. 50 soldiers have already signed up, General Hayes said. Word has spread about your performance in battle. There are people who want to become what you are. Jake thought about the responsibility that was being placed on his shoulders. If he helped design better equipment and train enhanced soldiers, he would be contributing to a fundamental change in human evolution. If he refused to help, people would continue dying in battles against superior alien forces. I want to be involved in every decision about this program, Jake said finally. No more secrets. No more lying about what you are doing to people. Agreed, General Hayes said immediately. And I want guarantees that future volunteers understand exactly what they are signing up for, Jake continued. Full disclosure about the risks and the changes they will experience. That is reasonable, Dr. Carter said. Jake stood up again, and the chair made a grinding sound as metal parts bent under stress. Then let's get started. If I'm going to be the template for enhanced humans, I want to make sure we do this right. General Hayes smiled for the first time since the meeting began. Welcome to Project Ascension, Lieutenant Morrison. Or should I say Captain Morrison? You just got promoted. Jake looked around the room at the people who had changed his life without his permission. He was angry about their deception, but he understood their desperation. The war against the aliens had been going badly for years, and desperate times required desperate measures. Let's go design some equipment that can keep up with me, Jake said. And let's make sure the next batch of enhanced soldiers has gear that actually works with their new abilities. As he walked toward the door, Jake realized that his complaint about being too upgraded for standard gear was about to become the foundation for an entirely new branch of military technology. The future of human warfare was about to change in ways that nobody could fully predict. 6 months later, Captain Jake Morrison stood in front of 50 enhanced human soldiers lined up in perfect formation. They all wore armor that looked more like mechanical suits than traditional military gear. The equipment was designed specifically for their upgraded bodies and enhanced capabilities. Each soldier carried weapons that would have been impossible for normal humans to use effectively. Jake wore a custom suit of armor that had taken 3 months to design and build. The outer shell was made from materials that could bend and flex, with his enhanced muscle movements without breaking. Internal systems monitored his vital signs and adjusted to his superhuman reflexes. His helmet contained a heads-up display calibrated for his improved vision and faster mental processing speed. Weapon Jake carried no longer used traditional firing mechanisms that would break under his grip strength. Instead, it used electromagnetic coils to fire projectiles at velocities that conventional guns could never achieve. The ammunition was made from depleted uranium rounds designed to penetrate the strongest alien armor. The entire system was built to handle forces that would destroy standard military equipment. Enhanced human division attention, Jake called out in a voice that carried clearly across the training field. The 50 soldiers snapped to attention with movements that were faster and more precise than any normal human unit could achieve. These soldiers had all volunteered for Project Ascension after hearing about Jake's performance in battle. They understood exactly what the enhancement process would do to their bodies and what risks were involved. 3 volunteers had not survived the genetic modifications, but the other 50 had emerged stronger and more capable than any human soldiers in history. Today marks the beginning of a new phase in human military operations, Jake continued. Standard human equipment was designed for standard human limitations. We no longer have those limitations. The training facility around them was filled with equipment designed for enhanced soldiers. Obstacle courses that would be impossible for normal people. Weapons testing ranges built to handle projectiles moving at incredible speeds. Combat simulation chambers that could withstand the forces generated by superhuman soldiers fighting. At full capacity. Dr. Lisa Carter watched from an observation platform above the training field. She had worked closely with Jake over the past 6 months to refine the enhancement process and develop better equipment. The guilt she felt about deceiving him had gradually been replaced by pride in what they had accomplished together. The enhanced soldiers exceed every performance metric we established, she said to General Hayes, who stood beside her. Strength, speed, reflexes, and endurance are all far beyond normal human ranges. More importantly, their equipment is finally compatible with their enhanced abilities. General Hayes nodded as he watched the soldiers demonstrate their capabilities. The war situation has changed dramatically since we deployed the first enhanced units. We are not just holding defensive positions anymore. We are actually pushing the aliens back and reclaiming territory. On the training field, Jake was explaining the capabilities of their new equipment to the enhanced soldiers. Your armor can withstand direct hits from energy weapons that would vaporize normal humans. Your weapons can penetrate alien shields that conventional bullets cannot scratch. Your targeting systems are calibrated for reaction times that standard soldiers do not possess. The soldiers listened carefully as Jake described each piece of equipment. They had all experienced the frustration of trying to use standard gear, with enhanced bodies, weapons that broke when fired, armor that cracked under the stress of enhanced movements, equipment that was completely inadequate for their new capabilities. The electromagnetic rifles you are carrying can fire rounds at 3 times the velocity of conventional weapons, Jake explained. The projectiles are designed to maintain stability at these speeds and deliver maximum impact against alien armor. One of the enhanced soldiers raised her hand. Lieutenant Amy Brooks had volunteered for the program after watching her entire squad get killed by alien soldiers. She could not effectively fight with standard equipment. Captain Morrison, what is our mission priority now that we have compatible gear? Our primary objective is to demonstrate that enhanced humans can not only match alien capabilities, but exceed them, Jake replied. The Zephyrian Coalition has grown comfortable fighting against inferior human forces. They are not prepared to face opponents who can match their enhanced biology. Jake activated a holographic display that showed recent battle reports from enhanced human units deployed across multiple fronts. Enhanced soldiers have achieved victory ratios that were impossible with standard human forces. We are winning battles that we would have lost just 6 months ago. The display showed statistics that would have seemed impossible before Project Ascension began. Enhanced human units were defeating alien forces at a rate of 3 to 1. Territory that had been under alien control for years was being liberated by enhanced soldiers using equipment designed for their upgraded capabilities. The enemy is starting to adapt their tactics, Jake continued. They are bringing heavier weapons and more soldiers to battles because they can no longer assume automatic victory against human